mind going first? I checked in with Tim and he was saying like we were talking about how it really grounded us as a couple
Mm,
leading. We have three kids, middle school and high school, and it's a very, very busy time with very various schedules. And so it's like we're just always on the run and going, typically, divide and conquer typically. And this was like a really grounding for us to get into a rhythm of the parenting together and spiritual discipline together and good conversations sharing and owning your part and the person not giving feedback, but just you saying it out loud and they hear your heart, safe space to share. It created the space and I'd say the flexibility too, because it was very hard with, with the schedule with our life, but there was
mhm,
that flexibility built in that, but it just kept us very intentional and aware. So you noticed was really Tim and I's like one-on-one time was
mm,
is really stretched thin. Like what you were describing earlier was just moments of trying to have these fleeting conversations. And I was noticing, oh, there's like four other things I want to talk to Tim about. I never got to it. So it kind of fell down to the bottom of the pile. But then it becomes almost like an independent decision
yes.
because it's like, well, we didn't get a chance to talk. So it's hurried or rushed or I just
Yeah.
did it. And I was noticing how much that happens.
Mhm.
And that can cause, like, over
Yeah.
time, that can cause, but it adds up. And because maybe some of the things weren't that big of a deal, but I can see how that can start to build some kind of resentment or like, oh, well, they did that. So I'll make this decision. And it's not even big things, but just an opportunity to talk it through because you also don't know what that other person even thinks about some
Mhm.
of these smaller decisions because you just can't get around to the conversation. And so creating that intentional time in the morning, like I'm not a morning person, but I'm like, all right, we're going to spend 20 minutes before you go on your work call. So we can have all these like moments, creating these times together. So it was what is going on in my marriage where these independent decisions, or maybe you don't get to talk through, I was insulted or hurt, but we didn't have time. Now it's 2 or 3 days later
Yes.
before I'm going to get to it. And then you feel kind of like, well, why am I going to bring it up? Who remembers what that was about, that little snipey back and forth, you know? And so it gave us like a system to even talk about that little
Right.
snipey, what do we call them, Sean? The snippety snips through. And so it gave us this process to be like, hey, there's a snippy there. What's going on? And it gave us a good healthy process to talk it through without getting defensive or attacking the other person. So it just incorporated some really healthy practices and disciplines around that connection.
Yeah.
And it was
Right.
like at first I thought like, oh, is this gonna be so prescriptive? But it's really not. It's just a resource and a tool that's available, and it was really like helpful because you're like, hey, there's a little sheet that they sent out on this. Let me pull this up and let's use that, right? In the heated emotional moment or feeling not feeling good. Or I think I definitely want to continue some of these practices because it's a discipline, but it's working and it was very valuable and helpful. So I think we just need to be intentional about it. And it really brought out highlighted those things for us. So yeah.